Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. We have some breaking news. An amazing bantamweight matchup is being reported by the Las Vegas Review-Journal for a March 11th fight night main event. We are getting Petr Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili. This is going to be my reaction and early prediction. And this fight card, even though it's a fight night card, even though it's in Las Vegas, it will not be at the UFC Apex. And I did a video about the UFC Apex probably about a month ago. I'll link it down in the description. But I think it was early in 2022 or early in 2021. I can't even remember now. The UFC applied for some permits to do some renovations on the UFC Apex. And this venue, which is the theater at the Virgin Hotels, is like a 4,000 or 5,000 fan venue. It's a couple miles away from the UFC Apex, probably about 10 minutes down the road. And I think a lot of people are going to wonder, why are they doing it there instead of the Apex? I believe it's because they are doing renovations on the Apex because they want to allow the Apex to have a larger capacity for fans. And I believe that's what's going on here. They are beginning those renovations. But I think this is great because Petr Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili is a very important fight in the bantamweight division. It's two elite level fighters. And I'm so tired. I'm sick and tired of seeing amazing fights being put on at the Apex. I'm just tired of the Apex at this point. I'm tired of the smaller octagon. They may use the smaller octagon here anyway because it's a smaller venue. And basically, if you don't know, basically the UFC decides which octagon they're using because sometimes for fight night cards, even when they're not at the Apex, they'll use the smaller cage based on basically how it'll look on TV, because in the smaller arenas, it doesn't look good to have the big cage. Dana White said that in an interview somewhere at some point in time. I heard that. So who knows, they might still use a small cage, but I hate the fact that we're having sometimes, fights that are massive for the division and we're having them in front of a couple hundred people and we're having them in the smaller cage. So I am hyped that this is not going to be at the Apex in front of a couple hundred people. And I'm really looking forward to this matchup. Say what you will about Petr Yan, because you have the butterfly effect, the UFC 259, which we'll talk about in a second. But he's still ranked number 2 in the bantamweight division. And I think he's one win away from a potential title shot. I think the UFC understands the context of Petr Yan's situation because face value, Petr Yan has lost 3 out of his last 4, which is just insane to me. It's just absolutely insane to me. The last fight at UFC 280, October of last year, the brutal robbery against Sean O'Malley. Petr Yan clearly won the fight. Unfortunately, he loses a split decision. I cannot believe that matchup. Then the fight before that was when he rematched Aljamain Sterling back at UFC 273. I do not think this fight was a robbery. I think the second and third round clearly went to Aljamain Sterling. The fourth and fifth round clearly went to Petr Yan. The first round, there wasn't a whole lot to judge. So I understand it could have went to Aljamain Sterling. It also could have went to Petr Yan, and he could have had his bantamweight title back. Then the fight before that, he beat Corey Sandhagen on short notice. I mean, he was supposed to fight Aljamain Sterling on that card. Aljamain Sterling had the neck injury, needed surgery, whatever, needed more time. They did an interim title there. But before that, the UFC 259 fight against Aljamain Sterling. He's winning the fight. He throws the illegal knee. He loses his belt. The butterfly effect that's just compounded. Now he's lost 3 out of his last 4 on paper. But I still believe, even though you look at that and you think, oh, he's nowhere close to a title shot, I think the UFC understands the context around Petr Yan's situation. And I believe if he does go out there and beat Merab, he'll be on the short list. I know we got a little bit of a logjam right now. We got Aljamain Sterling potentially fighting Henry Cejudo, the winner of that fight potentially fighting Sean O'Malley. Or if Aljamain Sterling is going to have surgery on his bicep or he needs more time, they're probably going to do Henry Cejudo versus Sean O'Malley for an interim belt. Then the winner fighting Aljamain Sterling in the summer. And then maybe Petr Yan becomes into the title discussion later this year or early next year. But I do believe a win over Merab puts him in very good position to claim that number 1 contender spot. And can you imagine, whatever version of events you want to imagine, but imagine a world where Sean O'Malley wins the belt. You have 2 very compelling matchups because you could do Sean O'Malley versus Petr Yan, 5 rounds for the title. And also, if Chito Vera is able to defeat Corey Sandhagen, very interesting there too. Sean O'Malley, Chito Vera 2 for the bantamweight title. That all relies on Sean O'Malley getting the belt. But nonetheless, this is a super important fight for Petr Yan. I think he's right back in title discussion if he beats Merab. Now, Merab, he's on a massive win streak. His last fight, he went out there and held Jose Aldo up against the cage, which I think a lot of us hate him for, because Jose Aldo, was on the verge of a title shot, could have maybe retired with the belt or fought Aljamain Sterling in his last fight. And instead we had to watch Merab just hold him up against the fence. And to add, just to rub salt in the wound, we have the fact that Merab Dvalishvili is, Aljamain Sterling's teammate. And he said, I'm not fighting for the title as long as Aljamain Sterling's the champion. So I think this is one of those fights where, maybe Merab's waiting to see what happens with Sterling. Does he win, another title defense or two and then move up to 45? Merab said he would go down to 25 before he fought, Aljamain Sterling for the title at 35. I doubt he can make 25 without absolutely diminishing his skills and his chin and his cardio. I don't think that ever happens, but maybe he's waiting to see what happens with Aljamain Sterling, because Sterling's kind of big for 35, and he's expressed before he might go up to 45 if he wins a couple more fights. But also, there is the fact that he could lose the belt soon. He could lose to Henry Cejudo. He could lose, to Sean O'Malley potentially. There is fights he could end up losing the belt. And then Merab, if he beats Petr Yan, there's no doubt that Merab Dvalishvili is going to be in line. But I think also the UFC realizes the bantamweight division is so stacked that even if Aljamain Sterling retains his belt, even if Merab knocks off Petr Yan, then you still have contenders that can fight for the belt, because you're still going to have, depending on what, how the title picture plays out, you have Henry Cejudo waiting in the wings, you have Sean O'Malley waiting in the wings, you have the winner of Corey Sandhagen versus Chito Vera waiting in the wings, and you have a litany of killers making their way up the weight class. Umar Nurmagomedov, Chris Gutierrez, Adrian Yanez. So there's no lack of contenders within the bantamweight division. So no matter what happens here, you're really going to have a contender depending on how the division plays out. Because if Merab beats Petr Yan, Aljamain Sterling at some point in 2023 loses the belt, Merab is going to be a number one contender for beating Petr Yan. And Petr Yan, a win over Merab, any opportunity with an injury or something along those lines, he's going to jump in, have a trilogy against Aljamain Sterling, jump in, fight Henry Cejudo for the title, jump in there, fight Sean O'Malley in a 5-round title fight, something along those lines, or wait it out to the end of the year till the division plays out a little bit. Petr Yan will most likely get another title shot, I believe, in the next year or so. Even if it's early 2024 or, maybe spring of 2024, I could see Yan fighting for a title. As far as how I break down this matchup, as far as an early prediction, this is an interesting fight because Merab just likes to go out there, grapple heavy, hold you against the fence, look for takedowns, smother you on the ground, beat you up on the ground. And Petr Yan's just super well-rounded, but we did see him controlled in the Aljamain Sterling fight. I think people forget, they remember the dominance of Aljamain Sterling in that second fight, in that second and third rounds, particularly where he was on the back of Petr Yan. But they forget the first fight. And they also forget rounds 4 and 5 in the Aljamain Sterling second fight. Petr Yan is an elite level grappler, okay? He out-grappled Aljamain Sterling in the 4th and 5th round in the second fight. He also out-grappled Aljamain Sterling for a significant portion of their first fight in the fight that he got DQ'd. He was taking down Aljamain Sterling. He was defending the takedowns at ease. And I think you look at Merab, I don't think Merab is the same level grappler as Aljamain Sterling. I think he's a little bit stronger in the clinch. I think maybe he has a little bit better entries on the takedowns, but I don't think he has the jiu-jitsu that Aljamain Sterling has. And I also believe that Petr Yan, he was just overconfident going into that rematch against Aljamain Sterling. He made some scrambles. Aljamain Sterling ended up on his back. He didn't realize in that moment, I think he thought, I'll be able to get out of this position. And he wasn't able to, because Aljamain Sterling, once he gets on your back, the jiu-jitsu is unbelievable. So I really think, Merab striking leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, he almost got finished by Marlon Moraes. Marlon Moraes gassed himself looking for the finish back at UFC 266. And you look at the rest of Merab's resume, it's not that great. John Dodson, Gustavo Lopez, Casey Kenny. His best win is Jose Aldo. And even in the Marlon Moraes fight, which Moraes was kind of on the way out at this point in time, almost finished Merab in the first round. In the Jose Aldo fight, all he did was hold Jose Aldo against the fence, which, don't get me wrong, Jose Aldo is a great anti-wrestler. He's a great takedown. He has a great takedown defense, and I picked Jose Aldo in that fight. But still, not a super impressive performance, and I believe Petr Yan is a better grappler than Jose Aldo, and I think this fight is basically going to be Petr Yan avoiding the clinch, avoiding the takedown, and just lighting Merab up on the feet. And I am so happy that this fight is 5 rounds. If this fight was announced for like, a featured fight on a pay-per-view, I'd be complaining that it was not 5 rounds. I am hyped that this fight is 5 rounds. It belongs 5 rounds. Both guys, Merab has amazing cardio. Petr Yan has amazing cardio. But I think Yan will be able to stuff the takedowns. I don't think Merab is going to be able to control him up against the fence. And I think Yan's so good. He'll be chopping the legs. The boxing is so technical. He's super defensively responsible. Merab's not going to be able to crack him and hurt him badly. And Merab's striking just leaves a lot to be desired. It's not super sophisticated. It's not super dynamic. He's not known for big power like Sean O'Malley is. So I think Yan just having the grappling ability that he has, I think he'll use his footwork. I think he'll use his boxing. And I think he'll be able to pump that jab out there, chop the leg of Merab, able to avoid the clinch, able to avoid the takedown. And I think this fight is going to be him lighting Merab up on the feet. And I actually am going to predict Petr Yan to get like a 2nd or 3rd round TKO in this fight. I think Merab's super durable. I think his stamina is really good. But a lot of his style is predicated on draining his opponent. And we've seen time and time again, Petr Yan can go a hard 5 rounds, whether it's grappling, whether it's striking, whether it's a mix of both. We've seen him go a hard 5 rounds multiple times. And even though Yan's lost 3 out of his last 4, I still believe he's one of the greatest. He should be on the pound-for-pound list, honestly, in my eyes. He's that good. He's one of the most complete fighters in MMA. He's super well-rounded. The jiu-jitsu is good. The wrestling is good. Just the technical striking, the power is good. He's not known for like nuclear power or anything along those lines, but he has good power. We've seen him hurt O'Malley badly in the 2nd round. And I just think Yan is going to win this fight and put himself in a position to fight for the title, the bantamweight title, in the near future, in the next year or so. I just don't think Merab gets it done. The only way Merab is going to win this fight, he's going to have to go out there and just eke out round after round. Just get Yan into a bad position, trip him, get him on the ground, and just hold on for dear life. Because one thing Yan really doesn't do, and I know this kind of sounds bad considering what happened in the 2nd and 3rd round against Aljo in the 2nd fight, but Yan's not going to accept the position, okay? And Merab does not have the jiu-jitsu to hold Yan in a bad position in the capacity that Aljamain Sterling does once he gets on your back. So I just don't really see that being super likely to happen in this fight, but you never know. But I think Yan, just such a complete fighter, such an elite fighter. The striking is top-notch. I just don't see a way Merab wins this fight. But this is another great bantamweight fight. I know you can look at the bantamweight rankings. You can literally pick names out of a hat. And no matter what matchups you make, you just have great fight after great fight. I wouldn't even mind seeing Umar Nurmagomedov versus Merab. Because Umar said he wanted to fight at UFC 285. He wants a big step up in competition. Merab's saying he's not fighting for the belt anyway. So as long as Aljamain Sterling's the champion. So why not let Umar Nurmagomedov fight Merab? Merab can't complain because he said, I'm not fighting for the belt. So what else is he going to do? I wouldn't have minded that fight. But I kind of feel bad for Petr Yan because Merab is still a tough matchup. Even though I just predicted him to win, he's so durable. The stamina is crazy. For everyone else in the division, you think they would ever make Sean O'Malley fight Merab Dvalishvili? It would never happen. If he would have lost the decision to Petr Yan, you think they're giving Sean O'Malley Merab? Absolutely not. So, you look at the resume of Yan, win or lose. Twice against Aljamain Sterling, once against Corey Sandhagen, Sean O'Malley, add Merab to that, and then he fought Jose Aldo when Jose Aldo was basically in peak form at 135 pounds. So, talk about a resume, win or lose for Petr Yan. He's fighting incredible opponents time after time. Can you imagine if he loses this fight? Oh my goodness. What a catastrophe UFC 259 would be in hindsight. Because then he would have lost 4 out of his last 5 and lost 3 in a row. I can't even imagine a scenario. This is a must-win for Petr Yan. I'm not surprised they didn't give him a step back. At the bantamweight level, there really is no step back. But it wouldn't have surprised me if maybe they gave Petr Yan somebody a little bit more manageable. There was some talk of the Marlon Vera fight, but that's still a tough fight. No matter where you look, there's tough fights in the bantamweight division. But I like this matchup. I'm looking forward to it. I'm super hyped. My early prediction is Petr Yan. Let me know. Comment down below. What's your early prediction? Are you picking Yan? Are you picking Merab? I'm genuinely curious. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.